everybody. Welcome back to Verse TV. Today with me, I have kind of a legend. Like, I usually internet stalk people before I get on, but I didn't have to because Linda has been part of, if you're in the dental professional, she's been part of most of our histories. Linda, you're a speaker, you're an educator, you're a consultant. I read that you were sometimes known as like the Ann Landers of dental teams that were having problems.
Or dental spouses.
Oh yeah, you can't forget about that.
Yeah.
So it's so hard for me to stay on topic, but I'm going to try to. Thank you so much for your time. I know everybody has a little bit more time on their hands right now.
That's for
sure. But today I wanted to talk about oral cancer cause. So you and Robin Morrison joined forces to start this nonprofit. Can you tell us just in a couple minutes of what prompted you to start this nonprofit and when this all began?
Okay. Back in 2010 or 11, the lady who ran my office, Lee Tarvin, was my right-hand person for 32 years in the corporate office, and her 46-year-old son went in to have a minor outpatient procedure, and we were doing a workshop in Virginia Beach, a 2-day workshop, and I said, Lee, you should be at the hospital with your son. She said, no, his wife is with him, everything's cool, and I need to be here. And at 11 o'clock, they called her and said, it's not an outpatient procedure. We are taking your son in. And it came back stage 4 cancer of the tonsil.
Wow. And
that was when I really first said to myself, you know, we need to do more to create awareness that this is very, very sad that more and more people are being diagnosed with head and neck cancer. But at the time, I was so busy with so many different things like the Speaking Consulting Network and trying to really focus on the last few years that I was consulting. And so I sort of backburnered it. And then at the ADOM meeting, I met Robin Morrison. I knew Robin. I knew she was a marketing person with 30 years in dentistry. And she was talking to me about her brother, Mike, who was dying with head and neck cancer. He was misdiagnosed by 2 doctors. They gave him antibiotics and they said the spot on the roof of your mouth should clear up within a couple of weeks. If it doesn't, come back. And it didn't. And anyway, by the time it was diagnosed, it was stage 4. And so he was in his last days, and my sister-in-law, Charlotte, a good name, right, Charlotte?
Right.
She was in Lynchburg, Virginia, and Charlotte's case was a little different. She noticed years ago a tiny little spot, a lump on her neck, but she was fearful to see about it. She didn't really like to take medication. She didn't like to go to doctors unless it was absolutely critical. But she didn't even tell my brother. And by the time it started growing, it had already metastasized. And sadly, at age 72, she lost her life in 2012, the same year that Robin's brother, Mike, lost his life. So as we talked, I said, you know, Robin, somebody needs to do something. These poor people can't eat, they can't speak, they can't work. And it's such a hardship on the families. And sadly, Charlotte, the treatment is often worse than the diagnosis.
Yeah.
And so we talked and we decided with our 80 years combined in dentistry, my 50 years and her 30, plus she's a fabulous marketing person for dentistry, that we believed with our connections, we could, in fact, make a difference. So we started talking. She does the majority of the work. I'm just sort of the spokesperson who makes a few connections now and then with people I know. But she and our administrative person, Nancy Salisbury, they do the bulk of the administrative work, the marketing, and the bubblegum challenge work. And now we are in our 6th year. And no, let's see, we became a nonprofit, certified nonprofit, or in
2013.
Right. So anyway, we're getting up there, and every year is better than the year before. We're now doing 5Ks. We're having health fairs. A lot of the fitness centers that are now closed, of course, are interested in talking to their clients about supporting oral cancer cause. And I'm so happy to be talking to you today because, as you know, Charlotte, April is Oral Cancer Awareness Month. And we have hundreds of dental practices doing the Bubblegum Challenge. Robin came up with we wanted to do something like the Ice Bucket Challenge, and we thought, what can't oral cancer or head and neck cancer patients do? They can't enjoy blowing a bubble. And blowing a bubble is something that social media enjoys. It's fun. You get your patients involved, and they measure the bubbles, and they try to blow the biggest bubbles. And we've seen bubbles on noses, on eyeglasses, and they put it on social media. And all of their patients are now becoming aware of. And we also encourage all the practices in dentistry to once or twice a year close the cash drawer, open the front door, and offer complimentary oral cancer screenings to every person in the community. And this can be a tremendous marketing as well as a community benefit, because once the patients who, especially the elderly, who say, well, I don't need to go to the dentist, I wear dentures. Well, they still need to do an annual or semi-annual check. So opening your front door and letting your community become more aware. And sadly, the statistics are proving that more and more 20 to 40-year-old males, there's been about a 67% increase in young males, 20 to 40. And typically, 10 years, 20 years ago, it was known as the old man who smoked or chewed tobacco disease. And that is not true in today's world. About 70% of the new cases diagnosed are HPV related.
You went exactly step by step into my next question. I don't even have to ask you any questions. That's what I wanted to ask you, is like, what is the most significant stat that you've seen recently? And I know even in our practice, when I was working clinically, a lot of it was HPV related. It wasn't your high risk scenarios where you could point a finger at someone and say, well, you shouldn't be smoking, or if you stay out of the sun, you're not going to get cancer, or you're not an alcoholic. These high risk habits that people have, and even with HPV, we're well above 80% of those over something age 30 are going to be positive for some strain of HPV.
That's correct, and most of us have the ability to fight off those HPV viruses, but sadly, and one of the most, I guess, research projects I loved doing when I was traveling a lot was that I loved asking people I would never see again, especially if we had already created a little bit of a conversation. And I'd say, if you needed to have a very important life-saving communication or conversation with your preteen, I used to say teenagers, now it's preteens,
Yep.
Who do you feel should have that conversation with your child or your children about some social activities they may be involved in could be deadly? And it was amazing, Charlotte, how many people said, I don't have any clue what you're talking about.
Right.
And of course, I'd have to get a little bit more specific. And then they were like, oh my goodness, I feel that the dentist and the hygienist should do this conversation. Mm-hmm. I had other people say, well, I feel that I'm their parent, I should have that conversation. Then I had others say they're medical, they're PE, and they're health educators. I had a variety of answers, but the majority said, as the parent, I should have that conversation.
Yeah.
But my question is, how many parents?
Who's going to give that information to them?
That's right.
Yeah.
And I talked to a very, I would say, forward-thinking hygienist about, I said, do you ever enter into conversations with young kids or teenagers, preteens, about the dangers of oral sex? And one hygienist had a great way. She just said, I asked them point blank, are you dating? And I know that there are some social activities that a lot of preteens and teens enter into that feel they're not dangerous. But let me point out to you, and she had a great phrase. She said, if you must love, glove.
Right.
And that's all she says.
Oh, that's perfect. Just plant the seed and it
Yes.
gets them thinking. Well, and I think that conversation is very easy for us as hygienists when we're going through a head and neck exam.
Mm-hmm.
It's
It
just
is.
it just makes sense. Um, so here's a big question. There are a lot of companies that offer rinses and lights and a process for these screenings for oral cancer.
Right.
Do you have a particular favorite?
I get a lot of feedback, and Robin does too, from the different patient practices or the different practitioners, I meant to say. And so we feel that Velscope is probably right out there with Oral ID. Those are the two that we hear most prominent. The one, Vigilant, I think, was the one that they had to swish a nasty tasting solution, and the patients really didn't enjoy that. It was kind of messy. So I think those are the two that we see most prominent in the marketplace. And just as we all know, so many people say, well, they're not that, they're not that accurate. Well, they're another tool in the toolbox. And I encourage everyone, Charlotte, to go to the oralcancercause.org website. Not only do I want them to listen to our OCC song that was dedicated by Lori Streeter, who dedicated a song, and it makes me cry every time I listen to it. But I want them to listen to the 13-minute video that Amber Young, a young mother, 35 years old, was diagnosed with oral cancer. And she simply went to a new practitioner in South Carolina, suburb of Charlotte. And the doctor, female, said, would you like an oral cancer screening with our Velscope? Your insurance won't cover it. And Amber kind of giggled and said, well, I'm 35 years old and I certainly don't think I have oral cancer, but go ahead and do the test. Well, of course, the test didn't show, but the panoramic x-rays and the x-rays that they were taking. And the dentist said, by the way, Mrs. Young, I am not charging you for all these different x-rays that I'm taking. I just need to get a different angle. We see something. And Velscope was very much a part of that examination that sort of lit up or whatever it does that shows or indicates
Mm-hmm.
something's not right, along with the x-rays. And she was so shocked because Amber, at age 35 with zero symptoms, had a golf ball sized tumor in her mandible and didn't even know it was there. And the surgeon said another 3 or 4 months, it would have fractured her jaw.
And that's all it takes is just, even though we're going through our days and it's patient after patient and we're repeating the same thing and it just becomes this routine, I think just going back and pausing and understanding that you could, even if it's just one person that you save their life,
That's for
that's
sure.
what it's all about. We're caregivers. And so we need to not get so caught up in the schedule. Every person needs to be treated just the same.
That's right. And
It's very
so
important.
many patients are now asking
Mm-hmm.
their hygienist and their dentist, I would like a complete oral cancer screening. My sister's a retired nurse, was going to a dentist who, um, when said to me, I don't think I'm getting an oral cancer screening because, of course, she was very involved with our sister-in-law's health. And I said, well, Pat, ask for one.
Mm-hmm.
And so she asked her hygienist, she just said, I'd like an oral cancer screening today. And the hygienist brushed her off and said, oh, the doctor does all that when he sees you on his examination at the end. Well, when he came in, she said, I'd like an oral cancer screening. And she said, he acted a little bit indignant that a patient should ask him how, or tell him more or less how to do what he was planning to do. So he told her, lift your tongue, point your tongue to the left, point your tongue to the right. Everything looks great.
Mm-hmm.
She left that practice and went to Dr. Jeff Blackburn, who serves on our oral cancer advisory board. And Jeff is not only a very astute dentist in Richmond, Virginia, he's also himself an oral cancer survivor. So he's on our website showing the details of a complete oral cancer screening, because a lot of dentists and hygienists think they're doing one and they're not doing it correctly.
Right. Well, and because it's their routine.
Right.
I
And this,
know from a hygienist perspective, I too got into that routine of like, okay, this is what we do in this practice. And sometimes you feel like you don't want to overstep your boundaries.
well, I even mentioned in my AOSH video that I did to introduce Amber Young. The truth of the matter is, when I was asked to speak about oral cancer to a large group live, I would actually cry if I talked about Amber's case. I couldn't talk about it. And so we took her because we had to have her tell her story, which she
Yeah.
does a lot better than Robin and I. And so in that, I mentioned the 5 major reasons why dental practice are not following standard of care by doing what we call ideal or complete screenings. And one is time is money,
Hmm.
and it takes 2 to 2.5 minutes. Well, if you have 30 patients a day, that's more than an hour. And so time is money, and that's one reason. A second main reason is that a lot of dentists and hygienists don't want to use the C word and make patients feel that we're over cautious. So they just don't even
Or that
ask.
we're not staying in our lane. I'd heard that before. Well, my doctor looks for that. And I said,
Right. No, no,
is
no.
he really?
You hygienists and dentists are the only physicians of the oral cavity. And that's one of the points we need to make loud and clear.
Yeah.
And so the third reason is because insurance won't cover it.
Mhm.
And I always say to my clients, offer it as a complimentary service by saying some dental practices impose a fee of $20 to $45 to do this, and we are providing this as a free service simply because we want you to stay healthy. We want to see you, your children, your grandchildren. We want to see 3 generations of patients. And then they go back to work and say, does your dentist do an oral cancer screening? And if you don't, you should see my hygienist or you should see my dentist. So it's truly a marketing to create this awareness.
Mhm.
And the fourth reason was because, was it the number 4 was the insurance doesn't cover it. Number 5 was given to me by a dental spouse. She said her husband was very proactive in referring to the oral surgeon. And at one of their dental meetings, when he walked in, the oral surgeon announced to the colleagues, oh, here comes Dr. Overdiagnose. He sends me a lot of false positives.
Oh, wow. Sorry for referring you patients and
Isn't that,
caring.
isn't that awful?
Wow, that's my knee-jerk response.
I
Oh,
know. And Robin even had a dentist recently in the past year tell her, no, we do not do oral cancer screenings because we consider them a liability.
well, that's a first. And
That's
this is why I think it's so important for us to use a platform like this. In YouTube, I'm hoping that a lot of consumers, a lot of patients are going to pass this along to their friends and family that they care about, and I want them to go to their dental practice and ask for a very thorough oral cancer screening.
and for their teenage and young children, the educational part that someone, if it isn't the parent, and when I heard all those responses from parents to teachers to hygienists to medical to pediatricians, uh, I thought to myself, they're all great answers, especially the parental responsibility. But then I got to thinking, Charlotte, who do teenagers really listen to? They
Mine don't listen to me.
No, they listen to their peers.
Yeah.
So we need to find some forward-thinking young teenagers who can become spokespersons for oral cancer cause, who will go into their school, their gatherings at school, and talk to not only their peers, but talk to their teachers and their administrators. This is a serious, it can become an epidemic within 20 years, as fast as it has spread the past 10.
Yeah. Oh gosh, that just gave me an idea too. They're on social media all the time. So if you got some really brave souls that really want to make a difference, put themselves out there and share that information with their friends.
That's
That's
true.
amazing. I'm a little disappointed because of the current circumstances that we're all in. You know, I'm right here in St. Pete, Florida, so I'm right around the corner. Was getting ready to participate in the 5K.
I know.
Um, but so there are some things that we can help you guys with online. You've got the run was one thing, that bubblegum challenge that now you've already sent out the kits for the bubblegum challenge, right?
They are going out this week, yes.
Okay.
We
All
can
right.
still get them out within 3 days of the new month, but it's kind of like maybe they need to make May Oral Cancer Awareness Month or
Yeah.
possibly June.
Just keep,
It doesn't matter. In fact, some practices
well,
do
I mean,
them
this can be year
year-round.
round. Yeah.
Yeah.
This can be year round. We can use the hashtag and continue educating people. And then the social thon is that still happening in
It
April?
is happening April the 9th. We're
Okay.
not going to be, I thought I was going to be coming over your way. And my sister lives in an assisted apartment in Plant City. And I thought I'd get to see her, go visit Robin and Ray. And sadly, we're not going to be using the studio. We're just going to do
Just
it
be doing it
remotely.
virtually.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched last year. It was just so much great information. So everybody mark your calendars and make sure to tune in. Really,
April 9th from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. will be live.
and Dental Cast Productions.
That's
What Facebook group is that going to be shown primarily?
It will be on Dental Cast Productions. That's the primary site. And I'm hoping they can stream it on the OCC, the Oral Cancer Cause site as well. I'm just not sure, as far as technology, I leave that up to the
They
experts.
can. They can do that. And then whenever we're viewing, we can also share with our social networks as well. We
Oh,
can share
super
to pages
news.
on Facebook.
Super.
Awesome.
That's great.
So
I'm
one
taking
last question.
uh,
The money that's raised from these fundraisers, where specifically does it go?
I would guess that probably a third of it goes for administrative costs, and that is one employee is paid part-time.
Mhm.
And Robin and I have always been volunteers. 99% of the people that work with OCC are volunteers and champions just because it's the thing to do. When dentistry has been so wonderful to all of us, it's time to give back to those in need. And the rest of the money, we do keep a reserve, of course, and thank goodness we did because the 5Ks have been canceled for the month of April. But a big percentage goes directly to the patients, to their families, because they have transportation costs, they need new appliances, they need co-payments. With Amber, we were happy to write a check for $2,500 for childcare. When you have part of your scapula removed to make a new mandible, you
Mhm.
can't pick up your 2-year-old child. And so it just does our heart good. The notes and the emails and the correspondence we receive back from the families or from the patients themselves, it's just heartwarming. And when we had a health fair put on by um, um, a health company or a fitness company in Virginia Beach 3 years ago, Unify Fitness, Unify's owners father, 57 years old, had head and neck cancer. And he was just, an average guy with a family and went to the dentist, had an upper molar, never had comfort after that injection. And he had pain in the side of his face. His wife said he walked around with ice packs on his face. He couldn't sleep, he couldn't eat, and of course, that was a special case. And Unify Health and Fitness put on an 11 to 2 p.m. It was like a family gathering in the parking lot. We had fire trucks and face painters and vendors and a live band and food trucks, and the fitness center was open, and they had a live auction, they had a silent auction. It was an amazing gathering of about 5 of the survivors all in one place. And we just had a great time and raised over $12,000 for OCC.
Wow, that's fantastic.
So we'd like to do more of those.
Yeah. Now, what's the process if someone that's watching this knows a patient that's, trying to recover, is going through treatment, they need a little bit of help? What's the process to let you guys know about them?
Well, they contact Robin through the OCC website. She or Nancy Salisbury get back in touch with them. I spend a lot of time on the phone. I told Robin I am now physically retired after 36 years of travel. I moved to Florida for a reason, and that is to enjoy the sunshine. And so I don't do the booths, and I don't do that anymore as of last year. But I will always be the head cheerleader, and I love talking to the patients. And Amber tells a fantastic story about how she went on a GoFundMe site when she was first diagnosed. And she said her neighbor's dog raised more money on his GoFundMe than she did. But a nurse, a friend of mine, who used to be one of my little baton twirlers at Homestead Air Force Base, believe it or not, I was the baton instructor for the dependent youth activity at the base.
We were stationed there.
Oh my gosh, you might have been one of my jetettes.
This was in 78, somewhere around there.
We were there 69 to 74.
Wow.
But anyway, Melanie Davidson, lives in Charlotte, and she texted me and said, Linda, I don't know this woman, but a friend of mine told me about Amber Young. Can I give her your phone number? It just gives me chills to this day of our very first connection and how that has evolved. And Amber truly is OCC's star patient who has done a lot of work for OCC to give back, and we're just so grateful. And the good news is Amber just gave birth to her third baby, and this is her fifth year.
Oh my God, how wonderful. Congratulations, yeah. Amber. Well, listen,
yes.
I want to say congratulations to all of you. I truly believe that people were put here on this earth, and all the entire story that you told was not by accident. Everything that you guys have gone through, so many other people have benefited. You're saving lives. You're making it easier for people to have the information they need and get through their treatment and give support to the family. So we just want to give a big virtual hug to you and thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you. And Charlotte, as much as we have done with people like you supporting OCC as a champion, we have so much more work to do. So we look forward to that, and we can do so much just from our homes.
Yeah.
Just getting involved and sharing information and being on social media. Without Facebook, I doubt whether OCC could be alive today.
We live in, people complain all the time that, oh, there's too much and social media is awful and all these negative things. I'm like, it's changed my life forever. I am so blessed and so happy to have this available to us.
Well, we're thrilled with the work you're doing, and keep up the great job, Charlotte.
Thank you, Linda. We appreciate it.
And by the way, I have to give you a PS. I was gifted 2 Burst toothbrushes at an ADOM meeting and once at Smiles at Sea. And I shared, of course, I kept mine, but I shared one with my friend Carol Ann, and she said, you've sent me a lot of little gifts over the years, but I want you to know my Burst toothbrush is my favorite present you've ever sent me.
We hear that so much. At first people were like, even my family, a toothbrush, really? Okay. And then, the next Christmas party, it's like the hot new thing at the Chinese gift exchange, because my brothers and sisters are like, I'm not kidding. It's something you're going to use every day. This isn't some just gift that you throw away or put in the tree next year. You're going to love it.
That's for sure.
A lot of great feedback.
You, and we love Burst. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Appreciate your time.